It's 7:32 in the morning, and my phone rings. Now, my phone ringing is not actually like any significant event, but the significance of that is it's a Sunday morning, which anybody that owns a gym knows that getting an early morning phone call is never good news. It's like you have a 6 a.m. class, the phone rings at 5:58, you just don't answer and just start driving to the gym. But my ringer's on and my ringer's never on. So there's two things in there, and I'm expecting a call, but I don't really want to get this call. So I roll over, look at the clock, 7:32, reluctantly grab my phone, and I look at it, and it's the name that I'm expecting to see on there, and it says Kathy. So Kathy's my mother-in-law. And while there's plenty of reasons I wouldn't want to get a phone call from my mother-in-law, this one I desperately do not want to get. So I pick up the phone, answer it, and all I hear is screaming through the phone. It's just chaos, it's panic, and I'm searching for the word that I'm looking for, and she's just yelling, and I'm searching, and then boom, I hear it. And the word I'm looking for is baby. So I get dressed, I'm probably out the door in 2 minutes. And for context, the hospital is about 30 minutes from my house. I make it there in 18, and I got gas. So if there was a traffic law to be violated, I violated it. And I'm sprinting through the parking lot, and then I'm sprinting through the hospital to try to get to labor and delivery. And at this point, I'm having a lot of weird thoughts that I know exactly where I'm going. We've been to the hospital way too many times at this point. Like, I'm very familiar with the hospital. I know exactly where labor and delivery is. It's on the 3rd floor. I'm gonna go right, and I'm gonna go through the double doors. So I'm sprinting, and I get there, and I burst through the doors, and it's mayhem in there. And she's not our doctor, she's not our OB, but she starts walking towards me, and I recognize her because I had seen her because we had been there a lot of times. She's wearing a mask, but I recognize her, and she walks up to me, and she says, "Your wife's bleeding. We don't know where from. We have to deliver the baby." So at this point, I'm recalling about 4 months worth of conversations that I've had with the doctors, with my wife, with a ton of people, and I'm doing some math. It says January 5th. The baby's not due till late April. This is way too soon. I'm not ready for this. And in that moment, nobody prompted me, nobody asked me a question, nobody gave me any sort of ultimatum, but in my mind, the thought that popped into my mind was, if they ask me to choose, I'm going to take my wife. And then things start to speed up. So a nurse grabs me by the hand, she kind of drags me through into the delivery room, and I don't really know what's going on. Anybody who's ever been witness to an emergency C-section, 10 out of 10 don't recommend. It's chaos in there. My wife and I are kind of chatting a little bit, and they do a successful delivery, and then the nurse comes around and she's like, "Hey, I'd like to introduce you to your daughter." And normally when a nurse would do that, they walk around and they'd be holding a baby, and they say, "I'd like to introduce you to your child." In this instance, because this is 4 months early, the nurse says, "I would like to introduce you to your daughter." Probably not much bigger than this. 1 pound, 10 ounces. So if you can imagine a level of helplessness that's involved in this situation, you're thinking about all sorts of things. They grab me, say, "Dad, you're coming with us. They're going to take care of your wife." And they shuffle me into the NICU. And the NICU is, in my experience, the most terrifying place on earth. Okay? There's noises. There's little tiny babies in there. Everything is an emergency in the NICU at all times. And they shuffle me in there, and they kind of move me over here, and they just stand me in a corner. I'm watching these 2 young physicians start to work on my daughter, and I start to have a very outer body experience in this scenario. And I'm looking down on myself in the NICU, and I'm watching myself sob uncontrollably. And I start asking myself questions like, why am I crying? And the reason I'm crying is because what I've just come to the realization of is that on my first day as a father, I got it wrong. You have one job as a parent, and I got it wrong on day one because I didn't know. So why do I lead with that story? I lead with that story because that day, January 5th, 2014, and every day since then, I've been asking myself the same question on repeat every single day. It's what led me to have some success in my affiliate. It's what led me to have a successful career on seminar staff and become a flow master. It's what led to the podcast for Best Hour of Their Day. It's what led to traveling around the world and speaking to thousands of affiliate owners and having helped 1,000 affiliate owners. And it's the same question that I want to pose to you, and is the whole purpose of this discussion, and it's this: what do you not know? And if I could impart any information to you, that's what I want you to continue to ask yourself. What do you not know? I feel pretty fortunate at this point in my life. I have a lot of successful entrepreneur friends. And the best ones all possess a very similar characteristic, which is they ask a lot of questions. They never assume they know, and they're very curious people. So what I want to start with is, I'm going to ask you that question. I want you to write it down. I want you to pick two things. I want you to write them down in that notebook or in that workbook. What do you not know about your business? What do you know you should know? What do you think you should know? But what do you not know? Two things, that's it. 30 seconds, write two things down. First two things that come to mind. Now, the reason that's an important question, and the reason I want to continue to prompt you to continue to ask yourself that, is ultimately because the title of this discussion, but successful exits do not happen by accident. A successful exit from any business does not happen by accident. And we're here talking about what is your box worth and how to fix it. And we're going to get into the details. But I have found it very beneficial to approach this whole discussion in a different manner. We'll get into the math later. But why do we talk about exit strategy? And this is an interesting topic. So anytime I present something in the realm of this topic, I can only describe the feeling and the emotions in the room as very uncomfortable. I think the first time I ever gave this was about 1.5 years ago. I gave it in Jersey. And I could see people panicking in the room talking about this. And I get a lot of pushback. Be like, hey, it's too soon. They're a new gym owner. They don't need to be thinking about exit. They need to be thinking about operating. They need to be thinking about marketing and coaching. And they're not ready for that. And my response to that is, thank you for proving my point. In no other facet of our lives do we not enter the workforce or profession without thinking about the end in mind. My wife just retired from the military. I spent 12 years active duty, the vast majority of my adult life in the military. You do not enter the military without thinking about retirement. You do not get hired by a company without discussing 401k. But for some reason, when we start affiliates, this is not something that we ever discuss. And we should. And the reason for that is 100% of small business owners will exit the business. Every single person in here that is an affiliate owner, raise your hand if you're an affiliate owner, all of you will exit the business. Every single one of you. Death, taxes, exiting the business. Guaranteed. So why don't we behave like that? There's lots of excuses. It's a passion business, all of those things. I'm like, those don't have to be at odds. Okay. So, a couple stats. 1% to 2% of startups ever achieve successful exit. So just to put a broad frame on it, what does successful exit mean? It means that it fundamentally changes your retirement plans. Okay, it doesn't mean you're never going to work again, but if I took whatever that lump sum of money is that you got upon exit and I put it into whatever vehicle you want to put it into, it changes what you do for the rest of your life. That's what a successful exit is. The vast majority of entrepreneurial wealth is made upon exit. Now, this does not mean that you can't make a good living running a gym. We have untold number of gym owners that we work with in Best Hour are making $100,000, $250,000 a year. That's a great living. Craig and I were talking last night, like, and a great lifestyle. Fun. Okay. I just want to extend the view that we're looking at this through. And I think there's a couple of different framing changes that we have to make when we have this discussion specifically, because it's really important. How many of you guys put a lot of work into the affiliate? Yeah, everybody raise your hand. Everybody raise your hand. Full extension of the elbow. Okay, yeah, running an affiliate is not easy. Okay, but it doesn't mean it has to be hard and devastating forever. Just like anything, at some point it should get easier, it should get smoother, it should become more efficient. Average small business sale in the US, 300 to 500K. Lower if it's owner-operator. Average affiliate sale in the US, this is just what I've seen, and I've seen under the hood of probably 150 sales at this point over the past 5 years. 50 to 60. $50 to $60,000. I don't think that's going to change anybody's retirement plans. And it doesn't have to be that way. That's our whole mission at Best Hour. Like, fundamentally, we're in the retirement business. If we do what we're supposed to do for affiliate owners, they'll be set up for success for a very long time. And the CrossFit community gets better over time. And there's more opportunity for coaches over time. That's our whole mission. Failure rates. Year 1, year 5, year 10. These are conservative numbers because there's not a ton of data in the small business world if you try to get into SBA and all these other, because a lot of them are just not reported. But looking at that, it's not a great set of figures to look at. 1 in 3 businesses won't make it to year 10. So look left, look right. You guys can flip a coin on who that's going to be. Okay? How many 10-year affiliate owners in here? Shout out to those folks. Hell yeah. I think it's really cool. We've got some affiliate owners that are coming up on 20 years here soon. And that's awesome. I've had mine for 16 and I can't wait for 20. I'm stoked for that. So when we're having this conversation about what is your gym worth, the first frame shift that I want to have is I want to ask a different question. Instead of what it's worth, I want to ask you what you paid for it. Okay? Now, there's probably 2 variations of this. The first one is, who started their affiliate from scratch? Okay, just, if anybody roughly knows what the number, just give me a number. Like, what did it cost you to start the affiliate? $3 grand. $3 grand? Yeah. Good for you, sir. Right? Right? Runs a fantastic affiliate. Right? Thank you for the patch, by the way. Who bought an affiliate? What'd you pay for it? 75. 75? All right, so I've got 3, I've got 75. That's the financial component of what you paid for it. What I want you to think about is, what'd you pay for it here? Right? What'd you pay for it in family time, weekends, missed date nights, birthdays? How many of you guys have worked uncounted number of days in a row, no days off, for weeks on end? Yeah. Hey, I'm a realist. If you guys have ever heard me talk, I'm a straight shooter. Depending on where you're at and running your business, that's cost of entry. Working hard is a given, and you're going to have to do that. People ask all the time, hey, how'd you get on seminar staff? How'd you get to that? I'm like, well, I started by giving up 6 years worth of weekends to make it through that. That's just one thing. Okay. That's on top of the affiliate, the money, the time, the broken relationships, all of those things. The reason that I want you to think about this is because, in my experience, people only start to think about this right here, these things, when the offer from somebody who wants to buy it slides across the table. And the number's not what you wanted. And all of a sudden, these things start to come up. You say, well, I put so much time into this. I did all of these things. I invested all of this money and this emotion into this. And I'm like, you did. For sure. But we should have been asking this question a lot sooner, and not on the day that you're trying to negotiate a deal, because you are way behind the power curve on this scenario. Way behind the power curve. Again, I have seen on the back end with affiliate, I get probably 3 emails a month from affiliates that we do not work with who are either buying or selling that want me to look at it. And for the vast majority of them, I have bad news. Most of them like, do not buy that or buy it for that amount. And the ones that are trying to sell it, I have to tell them I have bad news for you based on the timeline that you've given me. You're not going to get the number that you want. So we need to ask these questions sooner. Much sooner, like right now. So I have a couple of goals in here. One is, I want you to walk out of here knowing things that you didn't know before you walked in here, right? I also want you to ingrain that, what do I not know? What am I not aware of? What information am I missing in this whole scenario? And if you're operating from that place, you're going to be in a better position long term. Just don't assume that you know. Right? Assume that there's a ton of stuff that you don't know, and if there are things that you do know, assume that they're probably inaccurate or you need more context. Because you paid a lot more than you think you did. And this is why this is frustrating for me, because that is a really tough position for me to be in when I see an affiliate owner who's been running the affiliate for 5, 10, 15 years, who wants to sell it, and now have come to the realization that they're going to get 50 grand for this thing on the way out the door. That's rough. That's real rough. If we're going to fix that, then we have to start planning. We have to start planning much better. So we have to start thinking about different ways of doing this, and I'm going to work you guys through a couple of different exercises here, but you're going to walk away with at least 4 pieces of information that you probably didn't know before you got here. Okay. So when we think about how this works, this is the affiliate blueprint. So over the past 2 years, we've been looking at, and all of you guys have this in your workbook that are on those tables there. Again, popping the hood on well over 1,000 affiliates that we've worked with in the past 5 years. I started to dissect them and look at them and start to see what were the common patterns and what were the things they had in common and what were the break points and what was the problem and why did they get stuck, and just going through like, what do I not know? What do I not know? What do I not know? Just over and over and over. And it does start to fall in line. So we're not going to go all the way and explain every single phase here, but I do want to outline this just so that you have a general idea of what this looks like. And it's 1:31, so you probably have a much more detailed version of this in your email right now. Okay? You don't know you need to open it right now, but you should have it in your email right now. Okay? So if we just look at revenue ranges, these are what those revenue ranges are going to look like. So 0 to 135, 135 to 270, okay, all the way up to 1 million. And some of you may be looking at that chart and say, hey, 1 million is not the target. It doesn't matter. The point is, listen, things can be really great at 1 million. Number one, that's probably a great version of a box. Okay, I know some gym owners that do that, and I know some gym owners that we've taken to that point, and it doesn't suck. Okay, but maybe that's not your target. But I'm pretty confident saying that your target, if you're in phase 3, is phase 4. So how do we start to move in that direction? So if we look at members, I used to think this number was about every 50 people is when things would change. It's much closer to 75 is when the numbers change and when the problems change and you need different solutions. Okay, it's much closer to 75. When we look at risks, that red, those are your macro and your micro risks in the business. When I say macro risk, what I'm saying is like, this is the overarching 30,000 foot problem that you need to solve for. When I say macro risk, I'm referring to, this is your personnel problem that you need to solve for. And then this is typically what your teams will look like in those growth phases. It always starts just you, yourself, and you. And then it's part-timers, and then full-time, and then you're adding full-timers as you go. Okay. But that's generally what that looks like. And I tested it so many times that looking at all the gyms that we work with, and then anytime I'd have a random conversation with an affiliate owner, I would just ask them 3 pieces of information, and then I could almost always tell them what their problem was by just knowing those 3 things. Okay? Now, this is not absolute like anything, right? But it's really close. And with a couple of questions, if for whatever reason you weren't in that phase or whatever, I could figure out why you weren't in that phase by asking a couple of follow-on questions. Now, a couple other pieces here inside of this phase. Phase 4 is what I describe as Death Valley. So if you happen to find yourself in phase 4, there's probably a couple things happening here. First and foremost, why is it called Death Valley? It's called Death Valley because typically speaking, once somebody gets there, this is when they start to get what we describe as financially leaky. Right? Meaning, hey, listen, at $400,000, $600,000, you're talking about $40,000 to $50,000 a month in revenue. All of a sudden, a couple extra rowers, 58 music subscriptions, right? 48 team dinners, right? Like all these things start to creep in. And what it highlights is they didn't solve one of the risk factors in phase 3, which was they're missing a lot of data. Like they probably don't have a functional budget at that point. And you know what happens if you have a lot of money and no budget? You don't have a lot of money. Very quickly. Having done that on numerous occasions, because I just wasn't in control of that and I didn't know the information. It's like, hey, we're bringing a ton of money. We're bringing $50,000 a month. This is great. I'm like, why are we broke? Oh, we have no functional budget. Paid lead gen starts to, I don't want to say become a requirement, but it becomes a legitimate discussion somewhere between phases 3 and 5, right? Something for sure over 150, but mathematically typically starts to become a very serious conversation about 225. The reason for that is, what happens now is you have a large enough member base that even with great churn, meaning let's just say you have 3% churn, your organic lead flow coming in is not enough to outpace that on a regular basis. The math starts to work against you. At which point, we need to either first fix our sales funnel, or 2, figure out how do I better acquire new clients. The last thing on here is something we've been putting a lot of time and effort in mapping out is this entire discussion is about what's your gym worth, maximizing value, and there's 2 additional pieces that you would want to have with regard to maximizing value. 1, I would just want to have a really well-running business. It cash flows, it's giving me all the things I need out of it. But then 2, I'd like to buy the property that it exists on. And then 3, if I've got 1 really good business, what would increase that value would having 2 really good businesses. Okay. And what we find is a lot of people start to move towards acquisition way too early, and they've not solved some of the key critical drivers to make sure that they can sustain that business health. Meaning they don't have good hold on their metrics and their data, they don't have a sufficient team, and they've not been able to create leverage over time. When I say leverage, I mean access to capital, money. Okay. And was everybody in here for Daniel's discussion this morning about leadership? Okay. When that guy talks, you should take notes. But fundamentally what he's talking about is when we think about strategy for affiliates, I think you have to answer 3 questions. 1, what business are you in? 2, what game are you playing? 3, what do you do? Okay. I'll give you the what business here. We're in the hospitality business. Making people feel seen and heard. That's it. Okay. What game are you playing, or otherwise stated, how do you win? His whole discussion is the answer to that question, which is if, as an affiliate owner, if you lack the understanding that your primary responsibility is to develop coaches, you will never get out of the rat race. Questions come to us all the time. Where do I find good coaches? Where do I find good coaches? I can't find good coaches. I need good coaches. Where do I find them? You don't. You make them. If you do not have that skill set, you're never going to get out of this rat race. That's why when you look over there at phase 1, it's the first personnel risk that you have to solve for. I have to come off of the floor. And anytime somebody does this, almost as a statement of fact, And they've not solved for that. And I get it, right? I've owned my affiliate for 16 years. You're tired. You don't want to coach the 5:15 and the 6:30. That's rough. I need to get somebody to cover the 5:15. I get a willing body who can breathe air to come in and coach the 5:15. And then 6 months later, I can't figure out why I have a retention problem in the 5:15. And what is being highlighted there is the gap between me and whoever I brought in to coach the 5:15 is far too big. And your customers feel that. Your clients feel that. They don't want the B team. So you have to develop a machine and you have to develop the skill set to replicate yourself to the point where only a trained eye could really tell the difference between the coaches on the floor. They're like, I would like to see a little bit more dynamic cueing over there, right? Logistically, like this was a little bit off. But your members, they should know the difference. They're like, this was fun, right? I remember when it was a shit show. I have a member who's been with me for 16 years. Her name is Nellie. She's retired twice. Every time I see her, I'm like, thank you. She's like, why? I'm like, I don't know why you're still here. We were so bad in the early days. It is astonishing that you're still here. Okay. It's because I didn't understand that. So you have to learn to develop your staff. Okay. Anytime somebody's really struggling in the affiliate, if I ask 4, 5, 6, 7 questions, it's a personnel issue. Every single time. Systems are fairly easy to build. Developing personnel, developing your staff, being a good leader, that's hard. Okay. But that's the unlock. If you want to make this fun, start putting your focus on that. Far too many of us spend way too much time coaching the wrong people. We're so focused on coaching the athletes when we should be coaching the coaches. Multiply that. Get really good at it. Get so good at it that you can take somebody from nothing to really dangerous in 4 to 6 months. That should be the target. Or like if somebody in a red shirt and seminar staff walked in, they're like, this is good. Shoot for that. And when Daniel's talking about feedback, that's now my love language, feedback. Hard conversations, have them. If somebody runs a crappy class, don't beat around the bush. Be like, hey, that was terrible. But we can fix it. But don't mince words about it. If it's bad, say it's bad.
PushPress is the easiest full suite software that you can get to run your business.
One of the best things about PushPress, I would say, is the customer service. Hands down, they are the best. We know them all by name. They hear a lot from us.
They know us.
And they know us, but they're there to help you. And they're also gym owners, so they understand.
They are out of this world and helping their clients and just have a true passion for helping gym owners. They're so good with customer service.
If you're not using it and your business is ready for it, or you're having stress with the system you're using, it's a no-brainer to give them a call.
Before we found PushPress, managing different things was very complicated and confusing, and so we just needed something that was more user-friendly.
If I had to describe PushPress, it would be comprehensive because they really understand what a gym owner needs, and they give us all the tools that we need to be successful. In fact, I don't think I've ever talked to somebody from PushPress that didn't own a gym. So they understood, and I immediately connected with the people there, and the products that they gave me were just, this is everything I needed. Like, where have you guys been my whole life?
The best way that I can describe PushPress is absolutely phenomenal.
If I had a gym owner friend that didn't have PushPress, I would tell them that it's life-changing when it comes to having more time to work on the business, and the support is coming from other gym owners that are trying to do the same thing that I'm trying to do.
All right, guys, if you like this content, please subscribe to the podcast, but understand we work with affiliates. If you are interested in building your business, understanding strategy, building a better community, and building better coaches and careers for them, hit the link somewhere around this video, and we'd love to have a call with you. So, first exercise, quick one. Look at the blueprint. I want you to circle your phase. I want you to circle this based on revenue. Just look at those revenue ranges, circle the phase that you're in. So if you're in that 270 to 400, that's phase 3. Just a quick circle. You don't need to overthink it. Exercise 2, even faster. Go down 2 lines. Circle your major risks in that same phase. So again, if you're in phase 4, those risks are key customer and your GM. Those are the macro risks and micro risks that I have to solve for in that phase. Now that you know what it is, I want to define them for you. Does everybody know what theirs is? Okay. So there are more risks than this. There's some situational risks depending on where you're at, but these are the 4 that apply to all of you all the time. Just to what degree do they apply becomes the question, and how big of a problem is that going to be for me? Okay. The first one is key man risk. This one you're going to have to solve at multiple levels, multiple times. Meaning, that single person is a choke point in the business. They're the only person that can coach the classes effectively. They're the only person that knows how to do the schedule, whatever. Okay. But you're gonna have to solve that multiple times to the point where you eventually solve it completely and you become what we describe as the gym mayor, meaning you do what you want, when you want, how you want, from where you want. And I'm not advocating for being an absentee owner. That's not what I'm advocating for. I think that's weird, honestly, in this space. I think you should love to go to your affiliate, and I think you should just go there and do whatever you want. Okay. Right. If that's you, good. Don't put yourself back on the schedule, just guest coach. It's funner, it's more fun that way. Key customer. What we're talking about for key customer risk is there is a small percentage of your member base that accounts for an outsized percentage of revenue. An example of that would be, pick your program, personal training, nutrition. Let's say that I run, I don't know, a 150-person gym, and I've got 7 people to 10 people that account for 20% of my revenue. I'm not opposed to creating those revenue streams. The issue becomes when they become risky revenue streams, meaning if I extracted those sales from the business, what happens now? In a lot of instances, the business can't sustain it, which is like, I need those personal training clients. Otherwise, I don't get paid this month. I'm like, okay, we've identified a problem. How do we solve for that? And we've pulled a ton of gym owners out from underneath the personal training boogeyman. Okay. And again, I get it. Sometimes you got to just sell some shit. Okay. But understand, is that revenue coming with outsized risk for me? Because now I become a slave to it, just like ads. If you can't get customers without running ads, you're a slave to the ads. If you can't pay yourself without doing the PT, you're a slave to the PT. Okay. The way we look at premium services is those should be value added to the customer and profit centers for the business, meaning they should basically be entirely margin for you. Okay, but you should not need them for operating expenses inside the business. And if you want to do them, knock yourself out. Single channel, referring to where do you get your customers from? Do you only get them from your website? Will you start to have decreasing growth rates or negative growth if you can't run ads? Do you only have one mechanism with which to sell to new clients? If that's the case, we need to fix that. This happened to me about 1.5 years ago. Like, our website went down for like 2 weeks. We're like a 20% drop in revenue. I was like shitting a brick. We have to fix that. So if that does happen again, what am I going to do? What can I spin up very quickly? How can I start doing cold outreach via email or DMs on social media, or go through an old client list and just start texting and calling people? Okay. And then start doing that all the time, not just when there's catastrophe at your door. And then lastly is data risk. And data risk comes in all shapes and sizes. But fundamentally, you either don't know something, it's incorrect, or you know something and you have no idea what it means. At which point, you might as well just not know it. Okay? I always like to give fitness analogies because we're all fitness nerds, but when it comes to data, I like to think of it through this lens. This is what I call the knowing framework. There's a difference between knowing something, knowing what it means, and knowing what to do about it. I could tell you Paul deadlifts 500 pounds, but if you don't know anything about fitness, that means nothing to you. But if you're a good trainer, you're like, oh, Paul has excess fitness. What are we going to do about that? Nothing. Good job, Paul. Conversely, if he deadlifts 95 pounds, again, if I don't know anything, I can't do anything with that information. But if I do know something about fitness, I'm like, Paul's a lean 220. There we go. Right? What do we need to do about that? We probably should work on building some strength. Okay? Same thing when we look at the metrics in your business. When you say you need more leads, what do you mean? Do you know what that means? Because if you can't quantify it, then I would argue you don't know what it means. And everybody has said that, by the way, myself included. I'm not immune to any of this. Okay? But if you don't know what it means and you don't know how to fix it, then we can't come to a resolution on how to drive the business forward, and you're going to be stuck in that phase forever. Okay. So, you know what phase you're in, you know what your risks are. Now let's talk about what you're avoiding. So, in your packet, you have that audit in there. There's 10 questions in there. I want you to take 2 minutes. We're going to work off my clock. We're going to take 2 minutes, answer those questions, right? Don't overthink it. Just answer the questions in there. 2 minutes. So that's exercise number 3. So we've gone through your phase, we've gone through your risk categories, we've gone through your owner audit, which is where am I avoiding things inside of the business. The last one that we're going to do is this valuation. Okay. Now, before we get into valuation, we're not going to get into EBITDA, we're not going to get into any of that stuff. That would be completely inappropriate in the context of this session. We do an entire 2-day workshop to figure this out with our clients, okay? But what I will tell you is we are going to get directionally correct, and what you come out of this with will be valuable to you. Just understand it is not intended to be precise, okay? This is the crayon version of the exercise. Any Marines in here? None? I was like, so we're going to do the Marine Corps version. Just don't eat the crayons, okay? All right. I can say that. I love the Marines, okay? So when we're looking at this, it's a risk-based valuation because we're in the service-based business. So this is going to be risk-based, and it's going to be SDE times the risk multiple. So first and foremost, let's talk about SDE, seller's discretionary earnings. Okay. What is seller's discretionary earnings? We're going to make this very simple. It is your earnings in every facet that you collect money from the affiliate. Whether you W-2 yourself, you give yourself distributions, you take corporate rent, you pay for insurance, you pay for your phone bill. Put a rough dollar figure on that. If you know exactly what it is, even better, okay? But if it comes to you either directly via cash or some sort of benefit, like you're paying your car note, it would get lumped into that number, okay? Earnings plus benefits, okay? Once you've got that number, then you're going to give it a risk multiple. Okay. Now, before you get into the multiple, and I'm going to give you an example up here on the board, and then you're going to do it on your workbooks. When you're doing, we're going to base it off of 2 criteria in order to make this simple. Okay? But understand, when you do the real version of this, this is way more complex. Okay? But this is more than sufficient for this exercise, okay? And the 2 things we're looking at, is it transferable and is it predictable? So let's define what transferable means. Transferable means, by our definition, by any business definition, meaning like the business does not need you. You do what you want in the business. You interact when you want, how you want, where you want, but you are not needed. You're not needed to run payroll, to do the coach development. You're not needed for any of those things. That now is a transferable asset to the person that's interested. Okay? Predictable means exactly what it says, meaning like revenue streams, delivery of the core product and services, these are all predictable. The business doesn't go through these wild swings throughout the year that when you go through due diligence in there, you're going to have to give a lot of context for why that's fucked up. Okay, we're like, wow, well, there's a thing that happens over here. No, this is now by definition not predictable. Okay. So if you can look at it and you can say, hey, yep, like we're going to see these revenue metrics on this rate, you know, consistently. I can go back this many years and it's like clockwork. It looks like this all the time. Okay, it needs to first run through both of those filters. Is it transferable and is it predictable? Okay. Now, this is important. So when we go back to when we were looking at the blueprint, we were looking at that acquisition phase. I think in the CrossFit space, it's slightly different. So if you spend any time or talking to anybody that's in the M&A world, so mergers and acquisitions, most people would never, in most instances, like they're not in the business of buying distressed assets. So they're not in the business of buying things that need serious overhauls, a lot of cash injections and stuff like that, because it's just usually a bad deal. Okay. I don't think that's actually accurate in the CrossFit space. I think that's primarily, if you were going to get into acquisition, what you would be targeting. So when I talked about the first frame shift, which was what did you pay for it, the second frame shift is I want you to think about being a buyer first. Most people get screwed when they go to sell the business because they've never sold a business, number one, and they definitely don't know what the seller's looking for. Right. So when you do this exercise, I want you to think about this. If I took your sheet and then I tried to sell you that, what would your answer be? Right? Understand, it's your baby. You're biased towards it. But if I just took it, I stripped your affiliate name off of it, your name, and I just showed you the raw information, would you be a buyer? Okay. So those are the two filters. So if we look at this, this is how we would, again, do a very rough exercise. So if I've got I've got 4 different options up here. So if I've got that first scenario, 60K owner benefits. Not transferable, meaning they coach a ton of the classes, they still have a lot of interaction. Not predictable, wild revenue swings. One-time multiple, maybe. Okay. 100K, transferable, it's got good systems, not predictable, maybe 1.5, you get 150K for that. All the way down to that last scenario where it looks like a big range, right? 2.5 to 5. Okay. So when we're talking about sales, probably max multiple you're going to get for businesses under 5 million would be 6. And they're probably not going to be in a service-based business. Okay. So what would be the difference between 2 and 5? A lot of things. How good is the data? What's the rate of growth in the business? How good is the team? These are things that start to give you a much higher multiple in that scenario. Okay. So what I want you to do is, I want you to take your SDE number, and I want you to answer this honestly, and then I want you to get whatever that multiple is. So it's going to be whatever that SDE number times something between 1.5 to 5. Okay? So pull out your phones, take 1 minute, do some quick math on that, write that number down because you're going to need it. Again, we're not going to get into negotiations and all that kind of stuff. That's way down the road. What I want is, I want you guys to have a good sense of where the business sits right now, if in fact you had to sell it. Like something happened and you're like, I have to offload this asset, like I don't have a choice. Life has now dictated otherwise. Okay. And we're gonna come up with our action plan. First, write down what phase you're in. So they're in your worksheet, and that back page, write down what phase you're in, 1 through 7, write it down. Next thing you're gonna write down is what's your primary risk? Is it data? Is it key man? Is it single channel? What is it? Right? Put both your macro and your micro. They're both on the blueprint. Write them down. The third thing you're going to do is write that estimated valuation. Whatever that SDE times the multiple was, write it down. Right? It's a $60,000, $120,000, whatever it is, write it down. And the last thing that you're going to do here is go to the owner audit, go to those 10 questions, and circle the one that you can solve the fastest. Circle that one. Fix that problem, whatever it is. You can think of it, I can solve it the fastest, or the alternative way to think of it is, which one gives me back time or money faster, right? And that may mean firing a coach. That may mean doing a price increase. That may mean calling my accountant and firing them. I don't know what it means, okay? But circle that one out of those 10 questions that you've identified as your red flag in the owner audit risk. It's the thing that you're avoiding that you know that you need to do. So let's just do it. And then what I want you to do is, I want you to write down what you're going to do with regard to that information in the next 7 days. I don't want you to wait a month. I don't want you to wait 10 days. I want you to do it in the next 7 days. And yes, I'm accounting for you being here till Monday. Get it done, okay? Because what I'm going to tell you is, like, you have nothing more important to do than whatever that is. So just do it. Put it on your calendar, block the time, address it, get it over with. If it's a hard conversation, send them a calendar invite, have the conversation. If you need to figure out what your churn is because you have no idea, figure it out. Call Dan and the guys at Push Press, figure out what it is. Okay? If you don't know how many actual active clients you have in your CRM, figure it out. Run the reports, trim them down, filter them, understand that like you may not have 338 members, you might have 111, okay? But get to the root cause because we fundamentally have to answer that question, what do I not know? What do I not know? That's what I want you to continue to ask yourself, okay? Now, last filter, and then we're gonna do a little Q&A, is I want to sanity check the multiple that you came up with. Okay, so whatever that multiple you came up with, a very quick sanity check is, if I took your business and I levied it with that debt. So if I go back to this, let's just say you came up with, I'm gonna get $150,000 for this thing. In your business's current state, if I gave it a 5-year, $150,000 small business loan, could the business support it? If it cannot support it, that is not a real number. Okay, that's a really quick sanity check. Yeah, what you got, Craig? So let's just say that you did a valuation, Craig, and you came up with a business was worth $500,000. Is that going to be something that we're going to be able to execute? And what has to happen there is the business has to be able to support that debt because the buyer is going to have to take on that debt in the business. And if the business won't support the debt, then you're not going to get that multiple because that's what the buyer's looking at. They're like, well, I'm going to buy the business, but I had to borrow either cash or some equity plus borrowing plus whatever in order to make this work. And now I have to have a loan payment on top of that. And if the business won't support that, you're not getting that number. If you do get that number, this is a bad scenario because there's a sucker in the deal. And I've seen it, it's not great. Okay. So sanity check it. And when you do this exercise, be honest with yourself. It's not always gonna be a great number, and that's not the point. The point is now you know and now you can fix it. This is a pretty heady topic, so I wanna open it up and, the one request I have for questions is to make sure there's a question mark at the end of your question, and otherwise it's just a statement. Yeah.
Why is valuation based off of owner profit and not total revenue of the business?
Great question. So the question is, why is valuation based off of owner profit and not just total revenue of the business? Is because profit is effectively how you're going to finance the sale. Yeah. And this is where I've seen this happen multiple times actually, where like, again, there's a sucker in the deal and the seller said, hey, it's just 3 times revenue. And this business doesn't make any money, by the way. I'm like, oh, we do $150,000 a year, so it's $450,000. And I'm like, $450,000 for distressed asset where you coach all of the classes and you make no money? Yeah, sign me up. No. So again, we're getting into like M&A world, but like if you were gonna walk into any firm, like they're not gonna underwrite that, ever. They're like, no, that's not how this works. I wanna buy a profitable business, or I wanna buy one that I can make profitable very quickly, that I can buy at a very low dollar threshold. So again, think about being a buyer first. If you wanna have a good exit, think about being a buyer first, and then what would I want when I sold it? Because the best version of this is when you're happy that you sold it and the person that bought it gets a really good deal. That's the best version. Right, you get to transfer that legacy to either your kids or a coach or something like that, and they're like, oh, this is awesome, dude, this is fantastic. Now I get the lifestyle that you built. That's transfer of legacy. Okay. Yes, sir.
Is the 5-year finance and the loan terms you said that we need to support the business, is that just standard for a loan? Is that just standard for an evaluation of is this what's worth, or is there longer terms involved in purchasing something like that?
Yeah, so the question is about supporting the debt. So this is where you can kind of get into the weeds. I just said 5 years because if you're going to go SBA or a bank or something like that, you're typically going to get a 5-year term on something like that. They're not going to stretch out 30-year terms on a business loan. That's never going to happen. However, there are other ways that you can structure that. And the beauty of, mergers and acquisitions or buying a business is you can structure the deal in almost any way you want, as long as you and the seller agree to it. It can be owner financed. It can be no money down in some instances where I'm just going to pay you out over time. But we have to agree on that. But in a lot of instances, if I'm going to try to sell something for a high dollar figure, it's unlikely in a lot of scenarios that the seller is going to want to do owner finance. There's a lot of risk for the seller in that scenario. And if you don't have that capital, you're going to have to go get lending anyway, right? And maybe I do put a little bit of money down, so I have to put 20% equity in there, and then I borrow the rest of it. And whether you borrow it from a bank or from your mom, they're going to want their money back relatively soon. Fair? Cool.
I'm in the process of purchasing a new affiliate.
Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding.
So, 2 parts. In the first month,
Yep.
what is the one metric you think you should be focused on? And is that different to a year later, 2 years later, or 5 years later?
Yes and no. I for sure want to know what retention looks like. So Dan and I have talked about this endlessly. And he's, one day Dan and I have like a egregiously long text thread. Dan from Push Press. He's like, what's the 5 bits of metrics you want to know? I'm like, I don't want to know 5. I want to know 2. Right? I want to know what's the funnel efficiency, and I want to know what's the retention look like, because I can correlate a lot of other business metrics off of those 2 things. I can come up with a pretty good number on like rate of growth. Is it growing? Is it shrinking? What's happening? In that scenario, I would want to know, are the financials correct? Unfortunately, most of the time they're not. Meaning like there's a lot of dead bodies in the scenario and you don't find out until after you've purchased it. You're like, I thought you said there was 135 members. There's only 14 who are paying. Right? So I don't have a great answer for that, but like I want to know for sure, do the financials look legit? If they don't, just run away. Just kill the deal right there. And we can talk more about like what would an appropriate process look like for that. Most people just jump in way too soon without doing anything that would look like due diligence, without putting money in escrow to make sure that it happens the way it's supposed to happen on the timeline that it's supposed to happen. It's just a shit show. And that's why I'm bringing this up now. I want people to be thinking about those things. So I would dive really heavy into the financials and be like, is this accurate? Because often it's not. Paul.
Brendan, your model of owner take home, are you including salaries? Because most owners are obviously looking at the bottom line, taking that, but also are operators.
Yeah, so Paul's question is, when I look at SDE, so seller discretionary income, it's all take home, right? Yes, I want you to limit your tax liability, so low W-2, mostly distributions, but I would put it all in there because that is all of your earnings put together. But limiting tax liability is a different discussion, but throw it all in there. What else? Yes, ma'am.
When do you know it's the right time to increase your membership?
Great question. Rabbit hole. You guys want to go? Okay. When do you know it's the right time to raise your member rates? First and foremost, it's a math question. When was the last time you did it? Does revenue cover expenses and whatever else I need to do? If the answer is no, then for sure we have to do that. Outside of that, I have to look at some other market forces. Am I keeping up with other costs that are fixed but not fixed? Like, am I growing at a rate that supports inflation, 3% increase in rent, my growth rate, all of these other things? But I would want to know more, but those are the 2 things I would look at first and foremost. And then I have way more questions about when was the last time that we did it, stuff like that. So let's chat. Yeah, cool. Yes, ma'am.
Can you expand a little bit on funnel efficiency?
Yeah, great question. So the question is about funnel efficiency. When I'm referring to funnel efficiency, what I'm talking about is, what is my ability to convert from lead to member? So somebody hits my website, whatever your intake process is, they join. What does that look like? Do you get 68 leads and close 2 every single month? Bad funnel efficiency. Okay.
So you're looking at an organic lead versus a paid ad lead?
Lead is a lead is a lead.
Okay.
Yep.
And then out of total number of leads, who converts to a member?
Correct. Yeah, I would just want to know what the efficiency of that looks like. And then in that scenario specifically where I've got organic plus paid, context matters now.
Yeah.
Because if it's a combination of those 2, it is highly likely, if not an absolute statement, that your conversion rate is going to drop because those are lower quality leads. If you tell me that number, I get context and you're like, hey, some percentage of these are paid leads. I'm like, okay, that's still okay. You're still within range of good efficiency there. But But that's what I'm talking about. So I'd want to know what's coming in the front end, and I would want to know what's falling out the back. Because again, most other things are going to be a correlation of that. Anything else? Cool. I want to close with a couple things. One, thank you guys for being here. I'll steal something from James Hobart, who is a longtime friend and a mentor of mine for a long time on seminar staff, and said, don't ever take for granted the ability to speak to a captive audience. And I say that at level 1s and level 2s every single weekend. Like, I never take that for granted. You don't have to be here. You spend a lot of time and money to be here. I genuinely appreciate that. And my goal is to always provide as much value as humanly possible so that you think that this was worth it. Okay, so number 1, thank you for that. Number 2, thank you for what you guys do as affiliate owners. I know what that's like. Okay, I genuinely think that there's no greater endeavor than improving another human being. And I think a CrossFit affiliate is probably one of the best ways to do that. And I think if we continue to get smarter here, we continue to push ourselves as coaches, CrossFit has a really long, healthy future in front of us. And for me, that's exciting. And I hope it's exciting for you guys. Okay. Outside of that, thank you guys. Please, please, please continue to ask yourself this one question. What do you not know? Because what I really want you all to avoid is getting to that day where you go to make the deal and you realize that you've not asked yourself that question. Okay, I do not want that for you. Outside of that, I would rather be no other place than right here, except for maybe with my wife and kids. Okay, but if you guys want to chat, if you guys want to talk about this, I will talk about all of this stuff until I'm blue in the face, and I'm here for you guys. So please come have a chat with me. Marcus is standing over there. The rest of the team will be here. But if there's any way that we can help you at all, please just ask. Affiliate owners are really terrible at asking for help. Just ask. Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate it.